Delta State Governor Ifeanyi Okowa says Nigeria is in dire need of attention to address many of its challenges. Okowa spoke in Abuja at a function to mark the 2022 International Youth Day, and he believes issues of insecurity, poverty, religious tension, and youth restiveness are capable of destabilizing the nation if something urgent is not done. He wants the federal government to promptly address these issues, especially the continued strike by the Academic Staff Union of universities.
I believe that the Nigeria of today is too fractured. There are so many contending voices. People are speaking in different directions. Our oneness is being threatened. Why? Not because of the North and South, the Muslim and Christian, but because there is frustration everywhere. There's poverty everywhere. We don't seem to have the answers because everything just appears to be going downhill. And then the issue of social security is no longer there. The insecurity in the land is worsening. Our economy is in such a place that it appears the foundation is totally shattered. Our educational system is obviously very challenged. What we see today is not what we anticipated. Where our children are out for 6 months, and also strike, so you don't even know when you're going to leave school. You don't even know when you're going to start. That ought not to be so. It depends on what importance you attach to education. If you cannot attach enough importance to the education of your children, you are destroying their future, you're preventing them from being in a position where they are able to contribute to the growth and the sustainability of humanity. We cannot continue in that state.
Well, Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa there, he is, of course, the vice presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, the PDP. And let's bring in Professor Abiodun, a Rice News analyst, as he joins us now in the studio to really have a conversation about all of these political developments, really. Abiodun, thank you so much for being here. Yeah. Well, I want to start with Michael Zokame, who has now gone to court, and he's citing Section 9, Section 10, and even 12 of the Electoral Act. But let's not forget that Inec, through now retired resident commissioner in Akwa Ibom State, Mike Igini, had actually cited Section 19 of the Electoral Act, where he says, you know what, INEC needs ample time, not just to register voters, but also to display those registers. So that way you can have disclaimers, or if there are corrections to be made and all of that. But at the end of the day, we want Nigerians to not be disenfranchised in 2023. So INEC is adamant. They say we need time to print, do all of the background work we need to do, but Azokame as well as Serap and others are saying extend it. So where do we find this balance, and how do we get to that point where no one is disenfranchised and yet INEC has enough time to prepare adequately for the next general election?
Well, I don't think the Learned Senior Advocate of Nigeria and Serap, you know, they're not wrong, as the case could be, and INEC too is also right, you know, in saying that we need time to prepare, you know, for the elections. We need time to prepare the cards, you know, that have been registered for. You know, so what we need to do in the circumstances to find a meeting ground, a common ground, you know, and maybe an in-between position between those who are operating from the legal, rightful process, you know, and trying to ensure that people are not disenfranchised, and INEC that is operating from the practical workability aspect of it, you know. And that common ground can come about, you know, through engagement that INEC is good at organizing, really, you know, meeting with stakeholders and letting them know once more what the issues are, you know, because, of course, the onus is of them to make the final call, and that final call include ensuring that all those who have a signified interest by registering online in the first instance, and those who have whose data have been captured, you know, through their regular biometrics, you know, have their card delivered to them, you know, well ahead of the election. So these things, I understand, take some processes, and we do not have the institutional capacity, you know, to fast track this. You know, that's why the process is still very cumbersome, because we do not have that institutional capacity in the first instance. That's why INEC is asking for time, and that time has to be considerable before the general election. Even though we understand, we appreciate the point from where, you know, the senior advocate is coming from and where Serap is also coming from. So the argument now is, let's find a common ground between the legal aspect of it, between legalism and the sociology of it, as the case could be.
Right. The sociology of it looks as if INEC is overwhelmed, even with your own submission. I mean, about the registration and the rest. The institutional capacity is another problem. Yeah. But it looks as if the situation requires a discretionary, you know, solution. Just like my colleague said, that people are not disenfranchised. Yeah. A window of another 1 month, would it assuage, you know, the hue and cry?
First of all, Christian, I don't think there's any institution in this country that is not presently overwhelmed. I listened to your revealing chat with the police officer earlier on, and of course, you see that the institution is trying, but of course, there are evidence to show that, you know, they are being overstretched. And secondly, you know, there's no way, you cannot keep extending these things. The CVR, that is the continuous
voters,
yeah, you cannot. If you keep extending it, it might just be ad infinitum. You may never see an end to it. There has to be an end, and it's probably, maybe ordinarily, you can say it's probably impossible to have everybody who is interested registered. There are so many impediments that will keep coming up. So many new realities, you know, will keep coming their way, you know, that will prevent them. And by the time they are resolving it, the door is shut against them, and they will agitate. There has to be a time where the line has to be drawn so that we can make some practical progress in terms of preparation, and that has to be borne by INEC, and that's the point they're making. Yeah, really. Even though we are concerned about integration and inclusion of all those who are desirous of performing their civic responsibility.
Right, and of course, we've seen multiple extensions, and one those who are not registered. Yeah. Okay, but let's move along from that conversation now and talk about, you know, the conversation about major political parties that says, you know, it's hard to see a political party with a rank of free primary elections. We've seen major political parties and, you know, what that brought from the APC, from the Muslim ticket, all that controversies, and in the PDP as well. Picking off Ifeanyi Okowa, and even one of the aspirants, Nyesom Wike, is still, well, a man who is yet to be, you know, calmed down. But at the end of the day, there's a stalwart of the PDP who is saying that at the end of the day, when a campaign council is inaugurated, that might be a solution. Do you agree with him? Well, looking at the fact that the APC has inaugurated it, but the PDP is yet to do that, do you think it will be that silver bullet to see an end to all of the crisis we're seeing? Amaka,
I've made the point at some point that you know, political parties and crisis, like you also alluded to, is like the aircraft and turbulence. You know, they will remain inseparable. What matters is how you navigate it. And of course, parties are continuously looking for silver lining. So if PDP is seeing silver lining at the time they will constitute their campaign council, well, that's a natural course to follow. But even when they do that, there will still be questions. Do not forget, there's still a raging controversy over whether or not their chairman should step down or somebody in the Southwest to come in, blah, blah, blah. So all these things will continue. But what matters is, again, is how they manage the different interests, you know, conflicting, you know, within their circle, realizing that they are an opposition party, you know, and of course the election has to be robust, the contestation has to be vibrant, and they have the very critical role to play in this matrix, you know. So we hope that they will resolve it at the end of the day, but however, time will tell.
Right.
Thank you so very much, Associate Professor of Strategic Communications, Bates University, and Arise News Analyst Abiodun Adeni. We're going on another break. When we return, more politics to be interrogated. Stay with us.